From ESPN Films, The Fab Five, presented by Super Street Fighter 4 3D Edition, rated teen.
I remember watching the first Duke game that the Fab Five played in December of '91 and saying, who are these kids? The Fab Five come in and don't care how they look or how they're perceived. Bald heads, black socks, black shoes, baggy shorts. They act how they want to act, and they're doing well. No big-time college basketball team had ever started freshmen like that before. A lot of America was threatened by some young, outspoken, brash black guys. I think that the audience, when they watch this, will see what these guys had to go through off the floor to get to a point where they could be successful.
And now, the Fab Five.
When the banners were snatched down and they rolled them up and put them in the basement, it rocked me to the core because we had put so much into that. Like, it's like snatching your life dreams away. When you mess up, there are consequences. And know that you can pay for them by being erased.
Deep within the archives at the University of Michigan lie the remnants of a revolution. To some, it was the flashpoint of a cultural rebellion. To others, the essence of all that was wrong with college sports.
Michigan's going to the NCAA Final Four! Oh, showtime!
Where these hallways end, a legacy lies in limbo, and our story begins.
This is a day of great shame for the university.
Steve Fisher doing all the right things in this particular ball game. Sheegan Mills makes it tough to throw the line drive pass.
Starts when touch. Long pass. Walker and Green battle. Walker fires up. It's over. Michigan has won a national championship. The Wolverines win an NCAA title over Seton Hall.
The Michigan Wolverines weren't supposed to win the 1989 national championship. Certainly not just 3 weeks after Steve Fisher had been promoted to replace head coach Bill Frieder on the eve of the NCAA tournament.
I am the happiest man alive right now, Brent. I'm just so proud of every one of them.
Coach Fisher, I think we'll be able to replace that interim tag sometime soon.
Fisher did get the full-time job, but the following season, the Wolverines were bounced in the second round of the tournament. And the next year was even worse.
We struggled, lost in the first round of the NIT, and a lot of places NITs are pretty good, but where we were, it was unacceptable.
Steve Fisher was really essentially on the hot seat that year.
Turnover, here comes Caleb busting out for the Wolverines. He misses the layup.
Remember now, the championship that he won, even though he was on that coaching staff, people did not consider those guys his players. They were somebody else's. So now he has to go out and keep Michigan at a high level.
All the talking heads said, well, Fisher won. He won with Frieder's talent, but now can he do what's most important? Can he recruit?
We had some debate who was the most important recruit for Michigan, and someone would bring up it's Chris Webber, and I said it's not Chris Webber, it's Juwan Howard, because I think Juwan Howard wants to come, and if we lose Chris Webber, Juwan Howard will still give us a type of recruiting class that we can build on and be successful with.
In 1990, Juwan Howard was one of the nation's top prospects, a first-team All-American from Chicago's notorious South Side.
You know, my mom and dad had me at a young age, and my grandmother took that responsibility, took that role to be my mother and father combined. The Howard family is very small, but we were a close-knit group, and I think a big reason for that was my grandmother. I wanted to go to a university that the coaching staff, the players, was all the family.
I spent every day recruiting Juwan Howard. That means if he was playing in an open gym in a park, I was at the open gym. That means if he was at a summer league game, I was at the summer league game. I convinced myself I was not going to be out work to get Juwan Howard.
Juwan trusted us, taking care of him, looking after him like his grandmother had when he was growing up in the projects of the south side of Chicago.
The day I declared to go to the University of Michigan, I woke up that morning and I was all excited about the press conference at school. And I recall my grandmother helping me get ready that morning. I came back home after basketball practice. There was a friend of the family walking out of our home. And she said, well, your grandmother had passed away. And I'm like, I didn't believe her.
Juwan signed his national letter at 8 a.m., got a phone call at 6 p.m. that Juwan's grandmother had died of a massive heart attack. Juwan was uncontrollable in his sorrow. So Brian and I, along with my wife Angie, jumped on a plane, and we felt we had to be there for him during that time.
We had a lot of friends and family members to show up to my grandmother's funeral, but what meant the most to me to see Coach Fisher there, Coach Dutcher, to be there for me. And that was the start of me building a new relationship with a new family.
With Howard signed, next on Michigan's wish list was Jimmy King, a highly touted shooting guard out of Plano, Texas.
My recruiting trip to Michigan, it was the first chance I got to meet Juwan. I could tell that he was leaning towards Michigan. My mind wasn't made up.
Brian Dutcher telling me that Jimmy was being heavily recruited by Kansas. He's kind of like 50 here, 50 there. And I was like, well, we have to change that. And I told him, I'm coming to Michigan. I need him there. I think that was the turning point right there.
We were coming back from Benton Harbor. I vividly remember it. And that was in the day where you had a 50-pound cell phone with something you had to put on the top to get reception.
I got the phone up and I'm like, Coach, I decided to go to Michigan. And he's like, Yahoo!
We let out a cheer that he could have heard without the phone.
And everybody in the car is yelling, and I'm looking at the phone like this, like, wow, like, is this a joke? They're serious? Like, they're that happy that I came.
Jimmy, congratulations, guy.
Hey. Michigan's next target was also from Texas, Austin guard Ray Jackson.
Juwan is the mastermind behind everything. He's the centerpiece. Juwan was like, you know, me, Jimmy King, and yourself, we can make something happen.
Once we got Juwan, then he helped us get Jimmy King and Ray Jackson. So that was a phenomenal recruiting class early. That would have been enough for most teams to stop and say, that's what we'll go with next year. But we had the luxury at that point of having them in the fold and then spending all the rest of the year until the April signing recruiting Jalen and Chris.
Growing up on the west side of Detroit, I know about mayonnaise sandwiches and sugar water and doing what I gotta do to survive. I have 2 older brothers and an older sister, and I have a different father. My mother was working as hard as she can to do the best she could for her family. So I didn't want to be like a person that was burdening her with the questions about my biological father when he wasn't there. I found out about Jimmy Walker from being at, the famed St. Cecilia Gym in Detroit. Sam Washington, who was the athletic director there. He saw me goofing off in the gym one day, and Sam brought me in the building, and he put on the film of my father really putting in work.
The man in the films was Jimmy Walker, the nation's leading scorer with Providence College in 1967.
Jim Walker is known for his remarkable poise when directing the Friar offense. His brilliant ball handling and great shooting ability make him a constant scoring threat.
He was the top pick of the '67 NBA draft, averaging 17 points a game in his 9-year pro career. But until the day he died in 2007, he had no relationship with his son. Jalen Rose.
When I went to high school, instead of wearing number 24, I wore number 42 out of spite because 24 was Jimmy Walker's number. And when you're a high school kid, you're always looking for some sort of motivation, but I always told myself that he would know my name one day. The first time I really started playing organized ball was 6th and 7th grade.
Come on, Dan, take it all the way. Love it, Jalen.
That was my first opportunity to be introduced to AAU ball and became teammates with Chris Webber.
Jalen and Chris grew up in our backyard. We recruited Chris Webber when he was 12 years old. We saw him dunk in an AAU basketball game. We said, who is this guy? So he was known commodity from the state of Florida to the state of Washington. Everybody knew who Chris Webber was.
In 9th grade, Webber enrolled at the prestigious Detroit Country Day School, where he blossomed into the nation's top high school player. Rose, meanwhile, attended Southwestern High, a Detroit public school powerhouse coached by local legend Perry Watson.
Only day off is Sunday.
Yeah.
So what do you...
Praise God. Detroit Southwestern was one of the top basketball programs in the country. If you walk into Detroit Southwestern's gym, it looks like Boston Garden. My senior year, maybe 9 or 10 of us actually went to Division I college. In the city of Detroit, it's a huge difference between playing private school basketball and public school basketball. Playing private school basketball, the teams have buses, they probably can shower after the game, and there's really no element of violence. Playing public school league basketball is just the opposite. You go play a game against Northwestern or Cody or Cooley or Finney. These are some volatile, hostile environments. It was very violent, very competitive. Got to be standing underneath the basket or in the stands with the hand in the coat. Like, you might want to miss this free throw or we're going to see you in the hood.
I often thought that Chris was uncomfortable in his own skin. He wanted to be a street kid. He wanted to be everybody to think that he was a tough, inner city tough guy, and he wasn't.
I think every year I've always succumbed to the pressure, and I've always felt bad or guilty because I didn't want to. I was just being overworked, I think, by a lot of things, not just basketball, but by the media or by just people.
Webber led Country Day to the state's Class B title, earning Michigan's coveted Mr. Basketball honor along the way. College coaches salivated, letters poured in by the boxload, and as the signing deadline neared, the intrigue only intensified.
Chris Webber can do everything. He has college coaches around the country drooling. But where will he attend school? Go ahead and announce it right now if you want.
No, I don't know where I'm going. Chris Webber, I think I recruited him harder than our assistant coaches at the University of Michigan. I called that guy 3 times a week. And I knew that Duke was a school that he was eyeing, and Michigan State. So I recruited him so hard, and I got that deal done. I don't know why it's so big, I just went to the school. But next year, I'll be a Michigan Wolverine.
These kids wanted to win. They weren't thinking NBA at that point because high school kids weren't going to the NBA yet. So they were looking for the best possible college team they could play on.
That same day, Rose captured his second consecutive Class A state title, and Southwestern finished as the #1 ranked team in the country. Immediately after, he declared that he too would attend Michigan. The school had captured 5 of the nation's top recruits in one class, and Rose's longtime coach, Perry Watson, was soon hired as Steve Fisher's newest assistant. In the fall of 1991, the group descended upon Ann Arbor for the first day of their freshman year.
The first day the Fab Five stepped on the University of Michigan campus, that was the start of the revolution. It just so happened that this revolution was televised.
In the early 90s, another revolution was afoot. Hip-hop street-born style was permeating pop culture, whether it was hats, pants, chains, or clocks. Bigger was better. Baggy was in, but college basketball lagged behind.
Before the Fab Five, you know, dudes was wearing panties out there playing.
Anybody were to look back and look at the shorts that anybody wore in 1988 or 89, they'd be viewed as obscene now.
We had those hip huggers from the old days that looked like Speedos now.
For me personally, shorts was always an issue. The first day we got uniforms, I did exactly what I tried to do in high school, is to get the biggest pair of shorts. I picked out a nice big pair. But the problem was they were for Chip Armour. They had number 43 in it. So when Chip showed up that day, I asked him. And God bless him, he was cool with it.
Jalen initiated the baggy shorts. We were tired of the little shorts.
So we went to coach one day after practice, and we said, Fish, look, we need to be comfortable.
We can't have those shorts that you see in Utah with John Stockton, Karl Malone. You know, we don't want to look like that. You know, we like the shorts like how Michael Jordan wear with the Bulls, but longer.
Bottom line, it came down to coach. He said, if y'all decide to go with these baggy shorts and y'all promise y'all will win me games, then I'll do it.
We knew we had a good class. We were never hesitant to say that, but we had some good players returning. 3 starters coming back from the previous year. All 5 freshmen think they're going to start, but it won't happen. I knew they were good. How quickly could they fit? Who would separate themselves, if anybody? Those are all the things that you have to wait and see.
The season began with 3 freshmen in the starting lineup: Rose, Howard, and Weber. They opened with 4 straight wins.
And see you later, says Chris Weber.
But then came their first real challenge, a matchup against the defending national champions, the Duke Blue Devils. With the college basketball world buzzing over the brazen group of freshmen now known as the Fab Five.
How do you feel about going up against the #1 team in the country? Is there something special that you feel about this?
It's not necessary. We're not trying to prove ourselves. See, you know, some people rate them as the #1 team in the country, and but a lot of teams have been rated #1 in the NFL. Anybody can be beaten. No one's invincible. And we're not trying to prove anything to anybody. All we're going to do is play as hard as we can, and it'll be an exciting game.
It's important to you, isn't it? It's a big game.
I mean, you know, you have to be excited about playing the #1 team.
See, a lot of people say it's experience versus youth, and that's not true because we have some experience on our team also. You know, it's a combination, and I just look for it to be an exciting game.
Fair enough. Okay, good luck, guys. And thanks a lot. I appreciate it. What's this sign you're going to give me?
5 times. Young Guns.
That's 5 times. No Fab Five. All of us brothers.
No Fab Five.
All of us brothers. We had that. No Fabulous 5. None of that.
5 times.
None of that #1, all that. We just 5 times. Just chilling. Let's go.
We know.
We gonna get pumped. What up, Detroit?
What's up, Detroit? Hey, I know I need a fade, but you know how we do it.
Can't get a haircut every day.
Can't get a fade every day. For me, Duke was personal. I hated Duke, and I hated everything I felt Duke stood for. Schools like Duke didn't recruit players like me. I felt like they only recruited black players that were Uncle Toms.
The faces of Duke, I didn't like them.
I hated Duke. I hated Duke.
You know, Coach K, you have Christian Laettner, Bobby Hurley, Grant Hill. I mean, yeah, they win. Keep in mind, they won a championship the year before. I respect that. But we are talented, too.
I was jealous of Grant Hill. He came from a great black family. Congratulations. Your mom went to college and was roommates with Hillary Clinton. Your dad played in the NFL, is a very well-spoken and successful man. I was upset and bitter that my mom had to bust her hump for 20-plus years. I was bitter that I had a professional athlete that was my father that I didn't know. I resented that more so than I resented him. I looked at it as they are who the world accepts, and we are who the world hates.
Duke was like America's team, and Christian Laettner was like God, and I did not like him.
a 6'11" senior from Angola, New York, number 32, Christian Laettner.
I thought Christian Laettner was soft.
Overrated.
Pretty boy.
A bitch. And I thought Grant Hill was a bitch.
I thought Christian Laettner was an overrated I really did. Until I actually got on the floor with him and realized that he had game.
Way back inside. Oh, Howard lost his footing.
Michigan struggled early, but despite the deficit, they were as advertised. Irreverent upstarts, brilliant playmakers.
Look out!
With Duke maintaining a double-digit lead in the second half, the Wolverines faced a choice.
They was beating us down on our home floor. Either we try to find a way to fight back into the game and really show what we're made of, or we roll on over.
They didn't roll over. They stood up and stared the champions down.
Underneath again, Weber! Weber looking back at Christian Laettner like, what did you expect out of me? I would say Duke is cracking a little bit, Jim, not the young Michigan players.
Spurred on by a raucous Chrysler Arena crowd, the Wolverines fought their way from 17 points down to tie the game.
The Wolverines can take the lead. There's Weber. Chris Weber and Michigan move in front.
With the score tied and overtime looming, Weber launched a 60-footer for the win.
Weber has it. This would count. Oh! We're going to overtime.
Then, down 3 on their final overtime possession, Michigan took one last shot to extend the afternoon even longer.
Michigan needs a 3 now to tie it. 5 seconds. Rob Pelinka just in the game, taking it. Almost. That won't do him any good. Duke has done it.
We lost, but it was a nationally televised game where people said there is some substance to all the hype.
People were shocked that 5 freshmen could hang on the floor with the defending national champs. And the thing that you knew was that you were going to see these kids again. The best was yet to come.
When conference play began in January of 1992, Jimmy King had joined Michigan's starting lineup, leaving Ray Jackson as the team's only freshman still coming off the bench.
It was extremely tough being the 5th wheel of the Fab Five. You got to remember, I came from Texas where I was one of the top kids in the state. Sitting on that bench watching, going in for 5 minutes and not playing the rest of the game. Those times I wish I'd have went somewhere completely different. I was ready to transfer. The brotherhood, the connection that I have with these guys, that helped me a lot. I mean, that's one of the reasons we have such a strong connection and bond together, is because they wouldn't allow me to give up. I'm coming from the state of Texas. We hardly ever see snow. Jalen gives me his coat during the winter. You know, when the first snow hits, I'm ready to go back to bed and not go to class. Jalen is there to give me his coat. Like, come on, man. It's the little things that make those relationships and those bonds strong and unbreakable.
It wasn't until the Wolverines traveled to Notre Dame on February 9th that Steve Fisher finally decided to do what he had vowed he wouldn't just a couple of months earlier, start all 5 freshmen.
We had been somewhat sluggish in how we had played and even practiced, and I felt that we needed something that might spark the excitement that I felt we were lacking.
Coach was going over the game plan. He used to always write the matchups on the board. He put the other team's 5 players up there. So as he was going down the tiers of the lineup, he wrote Ray's name up there. So we all perked up like, it's going down today. We about to do this.
20 years earlier, freshmen weren't allowed to play varsity ball in the NCAA. Now, 5 freshmen were starting a major college game.
We've been waiting for this day since the season started. We look at one another And we like, this better work.
It was obvious that we should be starting the Fab Five. They wanted to be on the floor together, so we were all excited. We were all excited as not only as players, but as coaches, that now we go see what we're made out of.
There's a turnover now as Sweet trying to get it inside. Jackson leaped to...
That feeling was ecstatic. I was almost ready to jump out my shoes. I'm surprised I didn't throw the first ball I touched into the stands.
Ray Jackson fires from just inside the line.
What made me feel so good about that was the entire team was excited for me.
That tall as big people go. Here's a reverse slam by Jackson.
Remember, you're watching 5 freshmen out there.
I goes down low to high-jumping Jimmy King, who puts a twister in.
You could feel it. You could feel an electricity that 5 had amongst themselves. They said, we're here together, and we're going to stay here together.
Up court it goes to Jalen Rose, dish to Jackson.
That was unselfish.
Not only did we win the game, but the Fab Five scored every point for Michigan.
Jimmy King scores a 3.
It sent the message that, hey, we're here in college basketball, and we're here to stay. And you have a special group that you better watch out for.
You knew right then and there that this was a seismic event in college basketball. You knew that everything had changed.
Prior to that, you had players staying a lot longer. So you had juniors and seniors on teams who were stars. It's only recently that you need to start freshmen because a lot of your better players keep leaving for the NBA. But these were, before them were the days when you couldn't go to the NBA so young. So the idea of 5 freshmen somehow being the best players that you could put out was making a statement that your seniors and your juniors weren't that good.
The upperclassmen, let's face it, they were not that thrilled that they were being pushed to the side.
It was a very hard thing for Steve Fisher to overcome. I think one of the reasons that he didn't want to start all 5 of them was that he didn't want to lose the rest of the team. Because if you're basically saying, well, the youngest guys on the team are the best, what do they have to play for?
When we first got there, it was some animosity. I think they wanted to smack us around a little bit, teach us a lesson, I don't think they realized we were up for the challenge.
Nothing as an upperclassman makes you more upset than playing behind a freshman. I think they handled it better than I would. Michael Talley, I played against him in high school. I had a lot of respect for him. Eric Riley, I knew that he was second in the Big Ten in blocks and rebounds the year before. James Vasco was a shooter. And Rob Pelinka. We used to joke with Rob Pelinka and James Vasco to tell them one of their main reasons for being on the team, besides that they were good shooters, to help the team GPA.
I mean, anyone's going to have resentment if your boss brings in some other people above you and treat them so much better than they treated you. And it was definitely some resentment.
I can remember talking with Eric Riley when he lost his position. It's you're 17, 18 years old and losing your job to a freshman. That's that's not easy. That's not easy.
Good move, Jimmy.
All of us had to just say, hey, let's not have this be like a us versus them mentality. Let's figure out a way where we can sort of blend what the upperclassmen can bring with our, experiences of having won a championship in 1989, add those ingredients to sort of the mix of what you guys bring with the talent and the athleticism.
I think it was really hard on those kids. These kids were Mr. Basketballs in their states. So the ones that were able to say, I know I'm not starting, I can still contribute and help win, were great value to the program.
You always were told that you have to be patient, that you have to wait your time. These guys came in and said, now.
No freshmen in the country were good enough to start. You know what I mean? As far as the whole team. So that was trend-setting. The Fab Five let people know it's not how old you are, it's how you can play.
Look out!
All of a sudden, you wanted to see them. They were must-see television.
Rose
Rose on the run. 3-on-2 to King.
Already, baby! Here they go! The Wolverines!
I mean, it was a smack in the head.
Bailey to the hole. Slammed it through! Jalen Rose!
Fab Five came in there with their own rules as a whole bunch of young bucks with, quote-unquote, no experience. They ain't pay their dues, and they're going to come in here brash and bold.
I'm expressing with my full capabilities, and now I'm living in correctional facilities. Cause some don't agree with how I do this. I get straight and meditate like a Buddhist.
Who are these 5 basketball player Muhammad Ali's with no resume?
A little showtime.
Oh, it was showtime.
Michigan has him standing.
Ice Cube, it's not for the pop chart. So where should a brother like you?
He's marvelous and magnificent, Mr. Weber!
Drop English right about now. Seeing somebody close to my age coming in with so much style, changing the game, you know. 5 freshmen starting and playing and kicking ass. It's crazy to see people be what society wants them to be, but not me.
It was like a rock star mentality. The whole nation just gravitated around these players.
It was like going on road trips with the Jacksons.
When we got off a bus, we'd have to cordon off an area so we could just get to the locker room before the game.
Come on.
On the hotels on the road, we'd have to post managers at each end of the hallway. We had to have 24-hour security for a college basketball team.
They were hilarious. They were engaging. They knew how to handle the spotlight.
Coach, now how do you feel when people say, you know, your team is very undisciplined? How does that make you feel, Coach?
Well, one, I know our players are undisciplined. But 2, I think I'm the greatest coach in the world. And 4, the only reason we're here is because of great coaching.
All right. Now, can we all have $100?
Turn that camera off.
Jalen was as entertaining a basketball player as you ever saw. One of the great trash talkers of all time.
Trash talking was 100% a part of who I was on every level. I understood that the mental aspect of the game was just as important as the physical.
And there's Jalen Rose going after Leighton in a little bit.
I would do research on people and say nasty things to them based on that research. I was a student of trash talking. If I found out your mom's name or something crazy that happened to someone in your family or something that happened bad to you, I'm trying to intimidate you, I'm trying to have you upset.
I mean, we had officials stepping in, telling us we couldn't talk smack.
Come here. There won't be any more talking. That's it. We've told you, no more talking. They've been worried about the talking.
And the majority of the smack talking, let me be honest, was motivation for one another.
Howard, perfect pass.
Like, Jalen, he can't check you. Get to the cup.
Ray, lock him up. Jam, knock down that 3. Jawan, you a technician down low. Chris, you a beast. Dunk on all of them.
I grew up playing sports in a black culture. Talking trash was heralded, acknowledged, and appreciated. Trash talking in sports originally from the playgrounds was never about getting in your face. It was about getting in your head. And that's what these kids were doing. When they talk trash, they were getting in your head. But it got distorted by people who weren't really that familiar with what they were saying. When you're not familiar, you can be afraid.
The cultural way that these young African Americans were playing the game, which was basically a street game transferred inside Chrysler Arena, was not the way that alumni were used to seeing Michigan basketball.
You got 5 black kids from the inner city who is at a university who prides themselves on being very traditional, and we weren't traditional. We got nasty letters from alumni in Michigan because of that.
I had many letters that were very racist in tone and made reference to 5 guys using the N-word more than once and proudly saying that they were Michigan graduates.
These are from people who went there and cared a lot about their school and felt like they needed to voice their opinion, and they voiced their opinion. We don't want to see 5 niggas on the court. This is not, you know, the Michigan way.
They were hate-filled, evil, almost the devil's work, calling us niggas and coons and saying, go back home.
I think those things made us come together as a team. People trying to break us down from every angle, you know, that brought us together.
It taught us this is brotherhood. This is the time when we all got to join together. We became even closer as a family.
Chris, that's the way to run the floor. Who's got it?
The perception of Coach Fisher is that he let us run over him. And that was far from the truth. He just didn't discipline us in a public forum. He would do it behind closed doors.
The guy furthest away should see it and tell the other guy who to pick up. There is no wrong decision. The only wrong decision is not saying anything. Turn it around.
You have 15 guys that are under your tutelage, and your job is to help them grow. We had structure, we had discipline. If you watched our practices, we had control in terms of what we did and how we did it.
Stop. The genius part of it that a lot of people didn't understand was that Steve had to come up with a system.
Make sure, man, make sure that you see the ball.
So it's like they're playing playground basketball. They're not organized. They're not disciplined.
People would say, well, they're rolling the balls out and playing. And that couldn't be further from the truth. But people that appreciated the way they played said, boy, they really move the ball. They share the ball. They play selfless. They don't care who scores, who doesn't score. All they play is to win. And I think anybody that studied the Michigan team and really paid attention knew that they wanted to win more than they wanted to do anything else.
The Wolverines entered the 1992 NCAA tournament looking for more wins. They'd finished the regular season at 20-8, but received just a modest 6th seed.
We wasn't happy about the 6th seed, first of all. But you know what? We were looking forward to that. We said, hey, here's the time right now to prove ourselves, to show everyone what we're all about. This is the big stage that we all dream of.
The opening round tipped off in Atlanta, where the team had an unlikely encounter on the eve of their first game.
We're staying in this hotel, and I remember looking down, and I peeked, and all of a sudden I see this guy coming out of this room. And guess who it was? Muhammad Ali. And I'm like, you know what? That's Muhammad. I'm freaking out, and all of us, you know, we just are so excited. And we're trying to get down to his floor to say hello to him, to shake his hand, maybe get an autograph, take a picture.
And he was a fan of ours. Now, Muhammad Ali, a fan of ours, and we're gonna get a chance to meet him. We go to Muhammad Ali's hotel room. We're sitting in the room talking to the champ, and he knows our names. He knows about ball. He's talking to us about being confident and cocky and shocking the world.
Their first tournament opponent was John Chaney's Temple Owls. And the Wolverines grinded their way to a 7-point victory.
Look at Weber run the court and feed roll.
Great to see flashes of these guys, and they're scary good.
We're fortunate. We're looking at Arizona in the second game, and they were upset. So instead of playing very high seed, we get East Tennessee State and rolled over them.
Find out how much they've matured. The lob. And these guys have put on the show.
After taking care of East Tennessee State, the Wolverines moved on to the Sweet 16. where they eked out a 3-point victory over Oklahoma State. Now, just one opponent stood between Michigan and the Final Four, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
We hate Ohio State. Lawrence Vanderbilt, Jimmy Jackson, they had a great team. We called them the Ohio State Buckeyes.
The Buckeyes had swept Michigan in the regular season. They were the Big Ten champs, the #1 seed in the region. It was the perfect opportunity for the Wolverines to make their biggest statement yet.
Fab Five has it at the start. Here's Jalen Rose.
From the outset, the pace was furious.
Weber swats it away. No goaltending.
Look at how far he came across the lane to get that ball.
The lead changed 12 times in the opening 10 minutes.
This could tie it.
A back-and-forth battle punctuated by moments of mutual disgust.
Wow, it's a headbutt first. Professional wrestling, huh?
With seconds to play in the slugfest, the Buckeyes had one last chance to win it in regulation.
Pass is deflected. Vanderbilt has it. Chipped. OT. OT it is.
And in OT, Michigan seized control.
Two-pointer for Rose.
Capitalizing on every opening and attacking from all angles.
Ray Jackson right back.
He got fouled. Weber's too strong to foul on the arm.
1 year earlier, Weber and Rose had just announced they'd attend Michigan. Now, they had led the Fab Five to the brink of history.
We fought and clawed and scrapped and found a way to win that game in overtime.
The game is over. The Fab Five is headed to the Final Four.
I've hit the Cabbage Patch. I'm having fun. I'm all pumped up. I got my Final Four t-shirt on. Just finished cutting down the net. Walking through the hallway, I see the camera.
We gonna take it out. I told you we gonna shock the world. I told you we gonna shock the world. I told you we gonna shock the world. We gonna shock the world.
I was just so hyped, man.
They come sprinting into the locker room with the chant, Cosby, Cosby.
I would be on the Cosby Show. We're gonna be on there.
Before we played Temple, Bill Cosby had sent a letter complimenting our team, saying he's a Temple alum and looking forward to watching the game. And then I added my own little paragraph to the end.
Bill Cosby faxed us a letter and said, if you beat my alumni, that Temple, that you, and go to the Final Four, that you will appear on the Cosby Show.
And I didn't find out until I got in the locker room that Coach Fisher had made up that story, had made up that last part of the letter, and I was crushed.
Being young and being in this situation right now, I really don't know how it feels. I mean, all of us are happy, but we're not satisfied right now. And I think after it's all over, when we look back on it, we'll realize how fortunate we were.
Keep going, Dave. Let's go. Tuck your shirt in. Tuck your shirt in and zip your jacket.
Michigan arrived in Minneapolis as the talk of the Final Four, alongside Bobby Knight's Indiana Hoosiers, Bob Huggins' Cincinnati Bearcats, and of course, the reigning champs. The red-hot Wolverines bested Cincinnati in the semifinals.
Back to King, there it is. Michigan is playing Monday night for the national championship.
They hadn't lost a game in over a month. The five freshmen who'd made headlines by merely starting together were now just one win away from a national championship. And after Duke beat Indiana in the other semifinal, the rematch was set.
There was no love lost between either team. The hatred was magnified in the finals because everything was on the line.
And the 1992 championship game is underway. Leitner dribbled it right off his own leg.
Duke struggled early. With 4 turnovers in the opening minutes, Leitner sat down, and Michigan rose up.
Howard right over Parker. See Chamberlain put away. Goodbye, Mr. Weber. Jackson saved it. Got it over to King. That's a 3. Weber just takes it away.
How about that dribbling ability of Chris Weber?
How about the numbers behind the back and Polinka scoring NFL.
Jim, I said at the top of the show we may be seeing the changing of the guard.
Throw it back outside, throws it away. Rose driving, alley-oop, tough shot by King.
Michigan took a 1-point lead into the locker room at the break. Their season had come down to one final half.
First half, we played good basketball. Stayed in the game, we were executing, we were playing hard. In the second half, they just smacked us. They just took it up to another level. They played like champions play.
Duke has the numbers. Back to Leitner. They get him started right away. Leitner, he wants the jumper, and he hits the 3.
Leitner, a non-factor in the first half, had sprung to life in the second. Michigan did their best to keep it close, but the Blue Devils couldn't be stopped. Duke scored on each of their final 12 possessions as the deflated young Wolverines watched their title hopes slip away.
When we knew we weren't going to win the game, the reality sets in, and our players were very, very despondent.
Man, get those motherfucking cameras on my face if you don't want to hear some goddamn swearing on motherfucking TV. Why in there? Come on. That's all motherfuckers want to see is motherfucking crowd. I said get the camera out of my face. That's all y'all want to see is a motherfucking crowd. We'll let the motherfucking crowd TV. Hey man, hope I got a lot of motherfucking vibes here, man. Get some motherfucking man. Right back at that. Ain't no thing coming right back at you. I apologize for all the language and things like that, but I'm human. I'm not trying to be Superman.
I felt like we did at least lose to a better team. And that was hard to swallow, but I felt like we're going to get a couple of more cracks at it. Everybody says that, but I really believed it.
We knew that in May of '92, we were going to make a foreign trip. Every 4 years, we went on a foreign trip. And it was diligently planned. My wife was very involved in the planning of the trip. We thought it would be great for the team, young kids, an opportunity to practice before the next season. So it was well thought out.
Who want to go to Europe? It's not Detroit.
Nobody wanted to go to Europe but Steve. But Steve was the head coach. I thought Steve made a good decision. He took them over there. We got a chance to play some top competition, but the guys also got a chance to see Europe.
Even though we're out of the country, it's a great experience for me, myself, and for the team.
Bobby?
I think I might enjoy the trip a little bit more if we go out to the club or something like that. Meet some friends.
At the time, we thought, we'll probably have a good first year. You know, maybe if we're lucky, we'll make the tournament, maybe win a game, get knocked out. And so we thought the year would probably not go as long as it did. Well, we went all the way to the national championship game, and the freshmen wanted to go home. They were tired, but we don't. We get on a plane, we go to Europe for 2.5 more weeks.
We had just finished the NCAA tournament. We just was not happy with the fact that we had to go to Europe for 16 days. And looking back on it, we were very spoiled.
This place is awful. Don't come back because you will not enjoy it.
Hey, Rose on camera. Don't put me on camera and ask me.
I know I complained the whole time. And I'm pretty sure when you interview everybody else for this piece and you ask them, they'll say that.
what you call a product of the environment, and this ain't it.
We have home videos of that trip, everything from being in San Marcos Square with the pigeons to all the little kids walking up and trying to find out who this group of guys were.
Excuse me, have you ever heard of the Fab Five?
No, not really.
They're a new rap group. They're very good. They're from the States. This is two of them right here.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3. It's the place to be. Yo, I'm chilling in Italy. 1, 2, 3. Yo, my breath don't stink. Yo, her name is Lena Eubanks, and you don't stop and you don't quit. I'm from the States.
I think if they watch the tape, they'll realize how much fun they had when they see themselves. And to this day, I don't know if I've ever shown it to any of them.
The one thing about the Europe trip, it made us feel like pros. It didn't make us feel like college kids anymore. And it made us start paying attention more to the business aspect of the game. Like, we're in Europe playing against pro teams. The stands are full. Somebody's getting paid this summer, and it's not us.
They come back as sophomores, and from the very start, it was not just go out and have fun. It was, you have to not just get to the Final Four, you have to win the Final Four. You have to dominate every single night you go out on the floor.
Yeah, if anybody on the team thinks we're going to lose a game, whether it's a coach or whether it's a player or whether it's myself, I don't want to be involved with that person. And we don't have a team that thinks that. No one on our team thinks we're going to lose any game we play.
You know, when you see the Michigan team out on the court, you realize that the only difference between last year's team and this year's team is last year, if they won it, they would have shocked the world. This year, the only way they're going to shock the world is if they don't.
Exacerbating the immense pressure was their belief that they were now cogs in a money-making machine. Baggy shorts, T-shirts, trading cards, virtually anything featuring the iconic Block M.
It's cute. I might have to give it a try.
As freshmen, they felt excited. As sophomores, they felt exploited.
I didn't feel like a college kid anymore. I felt like a professional athlete that wasn't getting paid. I remember we were in Chicago one time, and we went downtown to the Nike outlet, and we walked past a display. It said, Fab 5 Nikes. That's when you start realizing having your own shoe doesn't necessarily put money in your pocket.
Whatever Nike wanted to sell, they threw it on the Fab 5. Black socks.
I had called one of my best friends at the time and asked him to bring me a couple pair of socks up, and he brought a pair of black socks up. And Juwan just gets excited, like, ooh, those black ones are sweet.
Don't tell anybody. You can't tell family members. You can't tell any coaches. Don't tell any of your girlfriends. Don't tell anybody. You put on your shoes and socks in the stall where nobody can see you. You put on your warm-up pants and you button them all the way down. We're going to keep our warm-up pants on until after they announce the starting lineup. We're going to snap off the warm-up pants, and the world is going to see our black socks.
You know, when I'm growing up, if you went out on a basketball court in black socks and you weren't 70 years old and on a shuffleboard court in Florida, they would laugh at you. Now, Nike, because of the Fab 5, makes wearing black socks while you're playing basketball fashionable.
When we started to realize that everything we wore, people were selling, we started to protest. And one of our silent protests was wear plain blue shirts that didn't say Michigan, that didn't say Nike, that didn't say anything. That was our silent protest.
The year after the Wolverines won their only title in 1989, merchandise royalties totaled $1.6 million. Following the Fab Five's freshman season, that number would climb to a 2-year total of $10.5 million. It was amateur athletics, but business was booming for everyone except the Fab Five themselves.
Perception of our lifestyle, that we were living like rock stars. We weren't living that lifestyle. That just wasn't what it was. We were eating cereal some night, you know, cooking hot dogs. That was our lifestyle. We lived just like every college student.
I drove a green Dodge Shadow that my mother gave me, all right? That's why it kills me when they try to act like we was getting it so big.
The only perks that we really got were pooling our money together to go to Taco Bell. They recognized who we were and gave us more tacos.
Yeah, we played beer pong. Yeah, we went to frat houses. Yeah, we went to parties. Yeah, we were doing what all of the other college kids were doing. It just so happened that we had to go to practice the next day.
The one thing I remember most about the Fab Five is how fun it was to be around them away from the court. If you had the good fortune to be around them and get to know them as kids, as human beings, other than just basketball players, I think the uniqueness, the fact that they were not phony, you might not like the way they played, you might not like the way they acted, but they were real.
Juwan thinks he's a light-skinned Billy D. He thinks he's a smooth operator. Oh, my goodness. And, you ragging on me, you know.
And there was a sense that they were in this thing together, and it was fun to watch them. It was fun to watch them grow up and grow together those 2 years.
I think in a cultural sense, they represented the homeboys and the homegirls a little more than, you know, the traditional beat writers who, you know, a bounce pass probably turns them on. Not with us, it's dunks, it's style, it's swagger, and just their attitude. You know, they brought, like, our attitude to the court.
It was all generational and cultural. If you were young and black, you were like, those are my boys. That's who I am. That's me. If you were old and white, you were going, oh my God, the criminals are taking over our sports and they're influencing our children. Get them away from the TV.
Hold it now!
Mirroring the Fab Five's ascent was a rise in racial tensions following the Rodney King beating and LA riots. Hip-hop was more popular than ever, and its most famous artists were both socially conscious and overtly violent. The Fab Five were no longer just star athletes. They were cultural icons and media targets.
I testified, my mama cried. Black people died when the other man lied.
The black shoes, the ugly black socks, it's the shaven head. I mean, my head's shaven because I have no choice. But all of that really has come back to haunt them in the eyes of a lot of people, where they don't look upon them as that clean cut, that all-American kind of guy.
I think this is one of the most overrated and most underachieving teams of all time. These are guys who come in and epitomize what is wrong with a lot of basketball players, and that...
Which is specifically, please?
They think they're better than they are. They come along, they cruise, they come in and say, hey, we're Michigan, we're really great because everybody says we're great.
Media members would judge us by more than just how we played. They would judge us on how we dressed. You know, he's listening to NWA. He's listening to Ice Cube. You know, who is Big Daddy Kane? Who is EPMD? What is Naughty by Nature?
What kind of music you listening to get you in the mood for this game?
COW, Compton's Most Wanted.
The Death Do Us Part, Ghetto Boys.
Dr. Dre.
EPMD's greatest hits.
EPMD, Dr. Effect Stop.
They judged us off of what they heard the music say. Not necessarily that we were kids listening to music that we like called hip-hop.
You don't listen to Mathis or Richie or any of that stuff.
Never heard of them.
Rap music had to be, to those journalists, it had to be from Mars, man.
You think you'd recognize any of the groups that those guys listen to?
Well, only if Peter, Paul, and Mary were still in vogue, and I think they've long gone by the wayside.
The Fab Five was the first ones to come out and say, yeah, this is our thing. This is who we are. That's what made me smile, because they did it together. We're going to make a statement, and we're going to play ball in a different way that people ain't accustomed to seeing.
College athletes in the early 90s didn't have tattoos playing for major college programs. If you had a tattoo, you was considered a thug. If you had an earring, you was considered a hoodlum. I had both, and I played in Michigan. And I had a bald head. Just so happened to have black shoes, black socks, and long shorts. So it wasn't a novelty, it wasn't cute. It was adding bad to worse in a lot of people's estimation. And then I got in trouble. The crack house incident.
In February of '93, reports surfaced that Rose had been present during a Detroit drug bust at the home of a childhood friend. The police had stormed the house on a Sunday morning and found the star point guard and his friends playing video games on the couch.
When they come in the house, we're laughing. Like, I don't know what kind of tips you guys got. You know, like y'all wasting y'all time. Then they start searching one of the guys. I remember it like it was yesterday. The cops say, "We got rocks. Whose house is this? Let's go." Everyone else got a ticket for loitering in the place where drugs were stored. But it wasn't a dope house. I know what a dope house is. I know what a crack house is, trust me. I've walked past a few. I know of people that have been inflicted by a lot of that. Drug infusion came in the mid-'80s. I know about the drug game, but I've never been a drug dealer, and that was not a crack house.
The way it was reported, it was everything from Jalen being a dealer to being on drugs, and it was front page above the fold. It was a lead story on every news channel accusing Jalen of being at a crack house, involved in drugs, and on and on and on.
That was probably the first time in his life that people doubted him or felt that he was a fraud, that he was just a typical guy in the neighborhood selling drugs, playing basketball or whatever. So yeah, he was very hurt, but typical of Jalen, he used it as fuel.
Our next game was at the University of Illinois, and the Orange Crush and that crew, they were brutal on Jalen, and they chanted,
"Crack house, crack house." And at first I'm thinking, I know they're not talking about me.
And Jalen, as only Jalen could, responded with one of the best games of his career.
Rose down the lane, and he winks at the crowd as he goes by. Rose again down the lane and lays it in, having an outstanding second half.
And when I got to the free throw line, they were saying the Nancy Reagan chant, "Just say no."
Jalen Rose with a chance for his 14th point of the night.
Just say no. Just say no. It was a part of me that was embarrassed. There was a part of me that was hurt. But it was also a part of me that felt like, you know what? I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to be a dog about it.
Now Keene has to play defense on Rose, and Rose draws the foul.
Rose administered a ferocious attack, punishing the Illini at both ends of the floor.
Huffman down low, has it swatted away and taken away by Jalen Rose.
He played every minute, grabbed 8 rebounds, and poured in a game-high 23 points.
Jalen Rose, what a move!
Willing the Wolverines to a 1-point overtime victory.
You know, as a 19-year-old kid, you really need the support of your brothers. They made sure that I got a chance to silence the crowd as many times as I could.
He performed, didn't let him get under his skin, and that's when I say this kid is what I thought. He got a toughness about him that you know, it ain't gonna work.
I think their fame and their significance culturally was so big that you forget the fact that these guys were teenagers. They're barely allowed to vote, and they're already expected to look and act like cultural icons. They lived in that same fishbowl together, and that's what bonded these guys. There's very few times that a team can come together and be so charismatic, break so many barriers, and do it still while winning games. These guys came at just the right time, they had just the right personalities, and they had just the right friendships to keep them together and have that us against the world mentality.
Michigan's 26-4 regular season record earned them a #1 seed in the 1993 tournament. But the road back to the Final Four was a bumpy one. They narrowly escaped the second round, overcoming a 19-point deficit and winning with a last-second putback versus UCLA.
Shot clock, pull-up jumper off balance, no good. Rebound, King up and in with 1 second remaining. And Michigan moves on. Oh, they have survived UCLA.
I don't want any more games like this. Tell me, if this brings experience, I don't want any more games like this. I'll just be naive and immature.
They then muscled their way past George Washington and Temple en route to a Final Four showdown with Kentucky. Considered by many the country's top team, the Wolverines played their best ball of the season in an overtime victory over the Wildcats.
Little man's back. Oh, yes, the back one.
And found themselves back in the same position they had been in 1 year earlier, playing for the national championship. This time, the opponent was North Carolina.
Going into the Carolina game, that was ours. We felt like we slayed the Dragon in Kentucky. We played that like a championship game. All we had to do was do what we supposed to, and we beat Carolina because we were a better team and we knew it.
Last year, as I said many times, the lowest point of our life, losing. This year, you reach your dream again.
You'd be stunned if you didn't come out here with a championship, am I right?
I'd be crushed.
2 years of that would be...
It'd be unbelievable. I don't know how I would take it. It would break my back.
Early on, North Carolina outmuscled Michigan at both ends of the floor and jumped out to a quick lead.
Back screen for George Lynch. Juwan Howard looks around and says, "Somebody talk to me."
But the Wolverines would counter with a run of their own, behind the shooting of Rob Pelinka and the strength of Chris Webber.
Puts it up, too strong, Webber. That's going to count. Dragged to the floor.
At the break, the Tar Heels led by 6, and play only intensified when action resumed.
Quick race. Webber with Williams behind him. Forget it.
Second half, it was like a heavyweight prize fight where if you didn't take a punch and deliver one back, you could not survive.
As time ran down, Ray Jackson hit a clutch jumper to cut the Tar Heel lead to 3. Then, with 46 seconds to play, Michigan took their final timeout, the coaching staff's last chance to address the team.
It was reiterated. It was noted and established and discussed that we didn't have any timeouts.
It was very clear.
You tell them there's no timeouts, but who knows where their minds are.
There was just this dull roar. You couldn't hear yourself think. And I was standing at the edge of the timeout, and I could hardly hear what Fisher was saying. So unless you're 3 feet away, you weren't going to hear a thing.
Michigan forces the turnover. And Jim, we got to be thinking this Michigan team, out of their last 8 games, 4 of them went overtime. Do you think it could happen again? Three to tie. Got it. Oh, it sure looked good. Webber underneath. 1-point game. North Carolina by 1.
Down 1 point, Michigan was forced to foul, sending North Carolina to the line with 20 seconds remaining.
Remember, the Wolverines are out of timeout, so they cannot ice him. Pat Sullivan, the junior from Laguna, New Jersey, at the foul line. 20 seconds left to play.
Chris gets a rebound, turns, and looks for Jalen for the outlet.
Chris travels, but they don't call it.
Michigan have to bring it. Oh, he walked in. The referee missed it.
Instead of going straight up the floor, he was veering towards our bench.
Webber brings it into the front court.
He saw the trap coming, and I think sort of like a deer in headlights, just panicked a little bit and dribbled into the corner, which is exactly what the Carolina defense wants you to do.
And as he pivot, he calls timeout.
Webber brings it into the front court. They have no timeouts remaining. Oh, he causes too many timeouts. That's a technical foul. He called a timeout. Michigan doesn't have any.
He takes the timeout. They're out of timeout. Technical foul. Technical foul on Michigan. They're out of timeouts.
2 shots in possession of the ball.
I was walking towards Chris, like, what happened? And then I heard Jalen say, he called timeout, and we don't have any left.
And so it'll be a technical foul. North Carolina shooting and the ball. A huge mental mistake.
While he's bending over, I got my hand on his chest, on his heart, holding him up. and I could feel his weight leaning on me. The gravity of that moment will make you just fall over.
It almost was suspended in time.
He makes two, this game will be over. Four-point difference, North Carolina.
It was like the whole world just stood still. It was like everything went into slow motion.
There you have it. North Carolina is the 1993 national champion.
Immediately after the game, obviously I had my sorrow for the loss, but I'm also thinking, this is my childhood friend that at 19 years old, didn't make a mistake in practice, didn't make a mistake where only a couple of people are watching. There were 35 million people watching this game.
There's rumor, you kind of heard timeout coming from our sideline, that someone from our sideline near our bench area has said, hey, call timeout.
When Chris and I talked after the game, and he was pretty devastated, he said, Coach, somebody said timeout. You know, he very clearly told me that he heard somebody say it.
He got confused because he got guys from the bench calling timeout. If it would have been me with the ball, just like Chris, I may have called timeout too, because I didn't hear coaches. I didn't hear anyone on the sideline say we didn't have any timeout. When he called timeout, I honestly thought we had timeout.
Chris Webber declined to participate in the making of this film, but a closer dissection of the play reveals a member of the Michigan team signaling for Webber to call a timeout.
I could see that there is immediate emotion, as in, no, that's the wrong thing, what are you doing? And I can see the opposite in people clapping. So.
Among those clapping is number 14, Mike Talley.
It was more than one guy, I know that. It was like multiple timeout. And then when he called it and he realized that it was in the timeout, he looked at the bench and said, why you MFs tell me call timeout?
We just lost the national championship to a team that we were better than. We let one get away. And I felt bad. I felt bad for my good friend Chris Webber. I felt bad for Coach Fisher.
I'm the last one to come off, and Jalen's waiting for me and put his arm around me and told me he loved me and said, you know, we'll be back. We'll be back again, Coach. Don't worry about this one. He was thinking not of himself, but of somebody else in that moment. And I think that's what made Jalen special, and I know that's what made that team special.
When we get to the locker room, Chris is laying face down. So it goes from now, we lost the national championship game, to we got to pick up our brother. This is the moment that everybody's been waiting for. Now they have it. We're wounded. How do we respond?
Bruce Motti, who was our sports information director, he came in to tell Steve who the media wanted to talk to. And Chris knew he was going to be one, so Chris turned to me and said, Coach, I don't want to talk to him. So I said, Chris, I'll go in there with you. I said, you got to do this. I said, you got to do it one time. And as we walked back, I mean, I could feel his body trembling.
Chris, when you called that timeout, right after that, you looked right at your teammates on the bench. Was anyone telling you to call the timeout, or did you hear the call a timeout at that point? It seemed like you looked a little confused when you looked at the guys on the bench.
I don't remember.
Chris, not to belabor the point, but what was going through your mind when it happened?
It was 20 seconds left, and I started dribbling the ball. Went down by 2. Did it on our side of the court. I picked up my dribble. I called the timeout. That was, whatever I did, that's what was going through my head. And it probably cost our team the game.
Chris, you said on Sunday that the loss to Duke last year was the lowest moment of your life. Is this worse?
It's the same. It's the exact same.
If anybody had a right to make a mistake, it was Chris, because he was the guy that led us there. Now, we had other pieces, but we don't go there without Chris.
And that wasn't why we lost the game, and I said that to everybody. It went unheard by Chris at the moment, but he was the reason we got there.
Parents normally didn't ride on a team bus. Chris's mom was on the team bus with us leaving the arena. And he sat next to his mom, and he sobbed the entire time.
Never discussed it. To this day, I have not discussed the timeout with him. And when I talk to Ray and Jay, we don't bring it up.
I cried. Because deep down in me, I felt like it was over. You know, I felt like we would never be together again on the court. We had plans of coming out that year, all 5 of us coming out together. We're going to win it, and we all going to the NBA. That was the goal. For us not to win it, that shattered some dreams. The dream was over.
Chris was in a hurry, and he knew that he would be the #1 pick, or pretty darn close. I was with him once when we walked past a store in Ann Arbor, and it had his jersey hanging in the window, and it was, I think, $75 or something like that. And he had just asked me if I could give him money for gas or pizza or something like that, which I couldn't, but he asked anyhow. And he saw his jersey in the window for $75, the number 4. And he said, they're selling that for $75, and that goes to somebody, and I have to borrow money to put gas in my car. And I remember thinking to myself, he's not coming back here.
That night after Chris Webber called that historic timeout, he's walking out of the Superdome, and you knew it was all about to change. Within a week, he had declared for the NBA draft. A year later, Juwan Howard and Jalen Rose join him in the NBA. King and Jackson are out a couple years later, and at that point, everybody figured the story of the Fab Five was over. But we were wrong. We were really wrong.
Chris Webber has been indicted on charges he lied to a grand jury about his dealings with a Michigan booster.
Webber allegedly lied about receiving $280,000 worth of cash and gifts from booster Ed Martin during his 2-year college career.
When I first started recruiting for Michigan, I went to a public league game in Detroit, and at the end of the game, the players I'm watching, they're out on the court with an older gentleman that's celebrating with them. And as a recruiter, I'm thinking, who is this guy? Obviously, he knows all these kids. What was Ed Martin?
The Godfather, Big Money Ed, as we called him. He was a big fan of Southwestern's program. So if there was a player on the team that had busted gym shoes or didn't have boots in the winter, Big Money Ed would make sure that he had a pair of shoes.
Poor people in the Detroit community aren't going to refuse that stuff. And so you could never keep track of how many times Ed Martin picked up a kid or took him here or there while he was at the house, maybe gave him something. All stuff that technically by NCAA violations, probably breaks the rules, but was just the way things were done in Detroit.
The biggest misconception was that Ed only looked out for the players that were the stars. Ed looked out for all of the kids, and a couple of us became stars.
He said, I make over 6 figures. I'm retired from Ford Motor Company. I'm an electrician. I can work doubles and triples. So, he went through all of that, and I saw nothing at all wrong with his association around kids and programs.
In cities like Detroit, when you're raised like a lot of these kids in our city have to be, you're not worried about breaking NCAA rules in the future. You're worried about eating now. You're worried about how you're going to drive now, what you're going to wear now. Do you have shoes? Do you have something nice to wear if you're going on a date? And you don't care where it comes from. And if somebody says, well, just remember me when you go to the NBA. All right, yeah, sure, okay, I will. Thanks for the sneakers. Thanks for the coat. Thanks for the cake. Thanks for the $100 for my birthday. I don't think of it that way. And, you or I wouldn't think of it that way either if it was just an uncle or an aunt or whatever. It's only when you mesh college basketball into it and they bring all these rules from the NCAA that suddenly you're doing something heinous. They don't even know what heinous is, at that age.
But Martin was assisting players with money earned from an illegal gambling ring he operated. He was also investing additional money in some of the better players, with the expectation they would return the investment if they reached the NBA. Among them, Chris Webber.
Now, what happened between Ed Martin and Chris Webber to this day remains a mystery because Chris won't talk about it and Ed Martin's dead. But what you had the record of before Ed Martin died and what you've heard from other people around him was that he gave Chris a significant amount of money in exchange for, I guess, a promise that once Chris went pro, he'd repay him in some way or keep him in his inner circle or make him something or another.
You have to understand, my father's relationship with Chris was as close to a father-son relationship that you can have outside of being that. My dad always said, you don't make it, son, no problem. If you make it, I'm here, I look out for you, you can reciprocate when you have the opportunity.
Martin's arrangement with Webber was kept under wraps during the Fab Five era. But by the mid-90s, he was paying several Michigan players, and the operation was no longer covert.
It was the Wild West in terms of money changing hands. There's utter shamelessness, it seemed like. The places where they lived, their lifestyle, the coats they wore, the coats their parents wore, this kind of stuff. If they're trying to hide it, they did a really, really bad job.
Michigan launched an investigation and fired Steve Fisher in 1997, citing a lack of vigilance in policing his own program.
We have tremendous pride in the legacy that I will leave in my tenure at Michigan. We have taken a basketball program and built it into one of the elite programs in the country, the right way, the right way.
I think we were naive during the time. I don't believe that any of the coaches actually knew anything during the time, but I think they weren't as aggressive as they should have been to try to find out. I don't think as a university we were monitoring as carefully as we could.
Ed Martin was this target of a federal probe, and so you had the big boys in here. And some of the players and other people had to go talk before grand juries. This isn't some guy out of Kansas now that you're talking about. These are crimes, and they wanted to know where his money came from and his racketeering and all the rest of the stuff, who was involved.
I ended up testifying in front of the grand jury because, just like Chris, I knew Ed in high school. So they wanted to know my relationship with him and what was the extent of the relationship. And the reason why I wasn't implicated is because I told the truth. While I was in college, Ed did give me a couple of grand. He was somebody that I could lean on give me a couple of dollars for the weekend, give me a couple of dollars to buy a pizza, a couple of dollars to go to a movie, a couple of dollars to hang out with my friends. That's what it was more for pocket change. The thing that got Chris in trouble for his case is that they said he lied to the grand jury.
The 29-year-old Sacramento Kings superstar was indicted Monday on charges he lied to a grand jury about his association with University of Michigan booster and admitted bookmaker Ed Martin. Weber told a grand jury repeatedly that he did not take anything from Martin. This is how he explained himself just over an hour ago.
This case is about a 60-year-old man, 65-year-old man, who befriended kids such as myself, ages 14, 13 through 19, preying on our naivety, our innocence, claiming that he loved us and he wanted to support us. And later, wanting to cash in on that love and support that we thought was free.
Why are you saying that someone preyed on you when you associated with this person, had a relationship, and asked for the assistance?
After I saw that clip, I was upset, hurt, disappointed. I knew that Chris was trying to do what he could to protect his backside, but I think that kind of threw a monkey wrench in our friendship for a while because I was pissed off that he portrayed him like that publicly. I didn't think Ed deserved that. I didn't think his family deserved it either, so I was really upset by it.
U of M is punishing itself for the transgressions of former basketball players Chris Webber, Robert Traylor, Maurice Taylor, and Lewis Bullock. U of M and the FBI believe the four players and their families took more than $600,000 from booster Ed Martin.
Once we knew that more than $600,000 had been given to the players, we understood it was a very serious infraction of NCAA rules. And so we made the very difficult decision, and it was really very, very sad that we had to vacate all those wins and that we had to take down the championship banners from Chrysler Arena. In addition, the NCAA instituted the separation, the 10-year separation, the no contact between the players who had been implicated in receiving money and the university. So we are not able, because of this NCAA ruling, to have any relationship with those players for this 10-year period that ends in 2013.
We got ourselves connected with something that was very, very wrong. When you talk about people who are connected with gambling, when you talk about paying significant amounts of money to players, we need to take the strongest measures necessary to protect the integrity of our institution.
The banners being taken down from Chrysler Arena, that was a crushing blow. I felt like in a time of crisis, they didn't have our back. They turned on us. And not everybody took money on that team. Now I could see maybe possibly trying to punish an individual who did do that, but the entire team erased the whole memory. That legacy is something that should be upheld and cherished forever.
The reality is it's a team sport, and the team wins together and the team loses together and the team is accountable together. And do I think it's fair to them individually? No. Do I believe it's the only way we can handle it institutionally? Yes. There are a lot of things that we admitted where we had made mistakes, could have done things better, and we apologized. What we're looking for is the same thing from Chris. Chris simply needs to acknowledge that he made a mistake, made some mistakes, some errors in judgment as a youth, apologize for those mistakes, and I believe that it would have an enormous impact on our ability to heal this situation and move forward in a very positive way.
For Chris just to say, I take full responsibility for my actions. You know, at the time, I didn't know it was wrong. I do today, and I apologize. I think would be the right thing for Chris to do, and I think everybody would welcome him back to the University of Michigan if he did so.
I would tell the good folks at Michigan, good luck with that one, because I don't think he's ever going to apologize. In his mind, what's there to apologize for? You got the bargain. The arenas were full. The TV contracts paid you a princely sum. What am I apologizing for?
I watched the Fab Five probably closer than anybody during those 2 years from the media. If Chris Webber had $200,000 or $300,000, he must have buried it in the backyard because he was constantly crying poor, living poor, driving a beat-up car and all the rest of it. My guess is the money that they claim changed hands there happened after Chris declared to go pro, but before he actually did. Because who do you know at 18, 19, and 20, if they've got a couple $100,000, isn't flaunting it in some way And I never saw that in the Weber household. I was in their house. They lived very, very modestly, or in Chris's personal lifestyle.
I'm more upset at the university than I am at Chris. I could never be upset at Chris. I mean, Chris played his butt off for the University of Michigan. You know, it's not like he point shaved. You know, he played his butt off. We make mistakes, so be it. I love you as a brother. You know, in personal relationships you have with your siblings, it's gonna be good and bad. But we love one another and we keep moving.
I'm not gonna say that, you know, one of my teammates took some money and they made us pay by taking our banners down. I would say their life is not fair. There are sometimes reasons that you would get penalized personally that may not even be your fault. But somehow you gotta learn how to deal with it and move on.
They were a hurricane. They came onto the scene with those baggy pants and pulled up black socks. They did not shy away from showmanship or controversy. But if you look at college basketball today, what has endured? They changed the way college basketball looked. And now freshman sensations are no big deal. But back then, 5 of them on one team was unheard of.
I feel like I'm probably one of the most talented players that ever didn't, you know, pan out in the NBA. For sacrificing at Michigan. But even knowing what I know now, would never do it differently because we built something special that wasn't seen before and hasn't been seen since.
I didn't have a brother growing up, so when I went to the University of Michigan and played with these guys, they became my brothers.
We've been brothers and family members from day one. It's something that can't be corrupted, can't be taken away from us, can't be tarnished. You know, I love those guys, and it's something I take to my grave with me.
Our legacy is that we were bigger than the score of the game. Did we want to win 2 championships? Yes, but we didn't. But tell me who won a championship 3 years ago. Tell me who won a championship 5 years ago. Tell me who was the starting lineup for the Carolina team that beat us.
The legacy for me is a fantastic group of young people that are now a fantastic group of adults. When I have a great win, inevitably I'll get a call from 1 or 2 of them. When we have a tough loss, I'll get something. Hang in there, coach, you're doing a great job. The love is still there. And that is the legacy that I will have for all of them.
Yeah, I'm playing with the Miami Heat. I'm playing with LeBron James, D. Wade, Chris Bosh. They don't say, hey, that's Juwan Howard of the Miami Heat. That's Juwan Howard from the Michigan Fab Five. And that right there lets you know that that legacy is here to stay. It hasn't gone anywhere.
We're brothers, and we'll always be brothers. They made me who I am. And I know, regardless to whatever happens in my life, beyond family that have the same blood, that as close as I will get to blood brothers.